Ladrido. I'm Internet 2 Program Manager in the NET Plus Services Division, responsible for the NET Plus Kajeet program offering. As far as today's session logistics, we're set up in a Zoom webinar format, so your audio and video are on mute. We'd ask that you use the Zoom Q&A feature to submit any of your questions that you might have during the session, and will be time at the end of the session for Q&A. Again, the session will be recorded and should be available on the Internet 2 YouTube channel at the start of next week. Here's what we hope to be covering in today's session. The goals of today's webinar are to provide attendees the opportunity to meet and hear from Kajeet about their managed service offering through Internet 2. We'd like to give you the opportunity to hear from the higher ed community about how they're leveraging Kajeet for indoor and outdoor private wireless challenges and as a replacement for DAS. And we'd like to share information with you today about the NET Plus program offering and the available resources. Today's session, I'm joined by the following subject matter experts. Jamaal Smith is a Vice President of Sales and Business Development with Kajeet. Jonathan Pauly is a Chief Technologist at Cal Polytechnic University. Keith Morris is an Enterprise Solutions Architect with UVA, and Nash Higgins is a 5G Architect with Texas A&M. We're also joined by Tara Guyanis, a Program Development Manager for the NET Plus division of Internet 2. At this time, I'm going to hand it off to Tara to get us started.
Thank you, Brian, and welcome everyone. Just wanted to give a quick reminder about how services are added to the Internet 2 NET Plus portfolio. This is a significant event today. We're always excited to launch new services. We're highly selective about those services that are in the NET Plus portfolio, so congratulations to Kajeet and the universities who participated for reaching this important milestone. Next slide. So when we're looking at prospective NET Plus services, we generally get input from the community, the higher ed technology community that comes to Internet 2, usually with two different needs, whether there's an unmet need in the market for specific technology or perhaps a challenge with an existing supplier. And those challenges can range from contract issues, pricing, support, adoption, anywhere where the R&E community can come together and work at scale. And that's really what the NET Plus program is all about, is bringing together the collective expertise, influence, and buying power of the research and education community in the U.S., primarily to accelerate cloud or other technology adoption by facilitating evaluations such as this one with Kajeet and managing those ongoing engagements on behalf of the community. So when we launch a new NET Plus service evaluation, we're looking for at least 5 institutions that are willing to work together on the effort and bring different perspectives from public and private, small and large institutions to the evaluation, which will be reflected in some of the discussion and information you hear about today. Next slide. So with NET Plus services, there are some commonalities across the NET Plus service portfolio. And so generally to qualify to enter into a NET Plus service evaluation, these are the things that we're looking for from a provider. And we'll learn a little bit more about how Kajeet met these needs and the unique process that the universities do to evaluate a service. In the case of Kajeet, you'll hear some about the process we did with an RFP. And through that, we were able to glean a lot of this information ahead of time, ahead of the service evaluation, and then focus on the things that were most important to the institutions participating. And so next slide shows really the selective group of service providers that Kajeet is joining in our portfolio for NET Plus. And so you can see there's a range of small emerging technologies, but also a lot of the big players in the technology space. And so we're proud that Kajeet is part of this and look forward to learning more about the service evaluation and the institutions that did that for us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tara. I thought it might be helpful for the attendees to understand the journey that Internet 2 and higher education and research community shared on their way to the Khajiit service offering. So in 2020, the Future Wireless Working Group was formed by Howard Pfeffer, I2's former CEO. And the membership today is around 67 members across 43 institutions. Their work in 2020 was focused on investigating FCC Auction 105 space. And at the time, I think it was deemed not to be the best approach as far as moving forward with this particular technology. The working group entered into a consultant engagement in 2021. And the recommendations that came from that engagement were to look to include a SaaS provider in the Net Plus program, to pursue a cloud-based Evolved Packet Core provider to support for testing and piloting of private wireless networks, to stand up and review neutral host network platforms and prototypes and proof of concepts, and to investigate private to private roaming, as well as expand the working group to have a technical subcommittee, a business subcommittee, and a spectrum access subcommittee. In 2022, that same working group solicited for and participated in 10 different vendor presentations, which then followed in 2023 with actual institutional trials of proof of concept that was done at UVA, Texas A&M, UETN, and Cal Poly. The results of those proofs of concepts resulted in an RFP. And so in late 2023 and into 2024, an RFP was authored and issued. There were 12 responses to that RFP. The decision to award to Khajiit was provided in August of 2024, and we entered in the service evaluation with Khajiit in late 2024, and that ran until October of this year. So that gives you a brief idea of kind of where it started and how we ended with Khajiit. There was a lot of work that was done in between by the working group, and again, to just talk about why we launched the RFP, one was the express community need and interest, specifically around alternative technologies to DAS. I think that 2024, based on what was seen in the trials and the vendor presentations in 2022, there was a belief that there was enough market maturity out there beyond proof of concept to be successful in finding a good provider. And also just a need for a partnership. They wanted a provider that had established carrier relationships for MOCN services. We had 7 community members over 10 months participate in the RFP and to help us to get to where we're at today. Some of the key differentiators for Khajiit selection are shown here. I think probably 2 of the most important things I'd draw attention to is the existing relationships they had with mobile network operators, as well as their demonstrated commitment and experience with higher education deployments that we talked about previously. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jamaal from Khajiit to provide an overview of their managed service offering.
Thank you,
Jamaal.
Brian. And good afternoon, good morning, everybody, once again. On behalf of Khajiit, to the Internet 2 team, to the service evaluation team, thank you for trusting us to be part of this esteemed group of other service providers across the Internet 2 Net Plus program. I'm Jamaal Smith. I lead all of our business development efforts here at Khajiit from a private 5G standpoint. Brian, if you can go to the next slide. So for those, as Brian said, that are not familiar with Khajiit, we've been around for about 24 years, and we cut our teeth in the education space. That's our DNA, that's our bread and butter, and that's where our commitment to the community continues to evolve. But we are a managed wireless service provider. Some of the unique things about our private 5G and neutral host platform, it's really a flexible platform that's catered really towards the higher ed community. The private network architecture, of course, as Brian said, leverages the CBRS spectrum, but we also look at other available spectrums in the case of Texas A&M, where they have their own EBS spectrum to build out a network. The networks are designed to support network slicing for quality of service based on use cases and application performance requirements. And this is a carrier-grade network that relies on a SIM authentication, which, as I'll always say, has not been hacked today, but we know there's bad guys out there every single day working to try to change that statement. We're really excited, based off of, as Brian laid out the timeline, from 2022 when we started this to finally be at a point where we can deliver this service to the community, and we're really excited about the opportunity. But once again, I want to personally thank Nash and the Texas A&M team, Keith from the UVA team, and Jonathan from the Cal Poly team for really trusting us to support their vision. And we look forward to working with many of the other universities across the community. Next slide, please. So just to set the table, right, as Brian said, when we went into this, they were looking for a 3-carrier solution. At the time of our RFP response, we had 2 carriers with the third potentially coming on board in Verizon. I'll lay the foundation today. AT&T is still full steam ahead from a neutral health perspective. T-Mobile is based on a case-by-case scenario. We are working on various business case justifications with Verizon. I'm proud to say that Verizon is now on air at University of Virginia and has been for the last 90 days. So that's exciting to see Verizon shift. And we're really excited to see what the new CEO's vision at Verizon is with some of the changes he'll implement. And then we're also investigating, we've got a lot of universities today that have spent either their money or the carriers have built out DAS for them. How do we leverage that existing investment in infrastructure to build out private 5G based off of that backbone? Our partnership is driven with the Cisco Evolved Packet Core. For those that are not aware, as the 3 major network operators look to migrate from 4G to 5G technologies, AT&T and Verizon chose to upgrade their existing platforms. T-Mobile decided to rip and replace that. They contracted with Cisco to go out and build the mobile packet core that supports every single T-Mobile user today. Cisco looked at that as an opportunity to get into the Evolved Packet Core business, and they shrunk that down really to support the enterprise. So we're really excited about our partnership with Cisco and looking forward to continuing to bring this to the university community. From a radio perspective, today we leverage Airspan, especially from a neutral host perspective, but we've also certified our platform with BiCells and Nokia. And I'll talk about our Sentinel platform, which really is that secret sauce from a Kajeet standpoint. That is our single pane of glass that makes it easy for the university community to manage and activate their private 5G subscribers. And I'll give you some visibility into what that looks like. Next slide, please, Brian. So this is an eye chart for most people, but I thought it was important to see the whole purpose of what we're doing with our neutral host platform. If you look at the far left, you'll see a bunch of radios, or what we call in the CBRS environment, eNodeBs. Those radios have the ability to broadcast 4 PLMN codes. Those PLMN codes would be AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, and that fourth being the university's PLMN code. And I'll pick on Nash. That's the Texas A&M PLMN code that can broadcast. If you move over to the right, you'll see BBUs. That's the baseband unit. If you look to the bottom of that chart, that's the UCS server. That is the Cisco Mobile Packet Core. That's the Evolved Packet Core that powers the private 5G network. If you look to the far right in the Kajeet data centers, that's where we host our Moken Gateway. That Moken Gateway is what allows us to broadcast the carrier's PLMN code to authenticate public users onto the university's private network. Next slide, please. And then, of course, we leverage our partnership with Federated from a SaaS perspective. This slide here really just gives you an indication. This is a static slide to show some of the capabilities in our device management platform, Sentinel. Once again, that is the DNA of Kajeet. So as Brian talked about in the opening, we've had 15, 18 plus year relationships with all of the major mobile network operators for our IoT and education business. This is the same platform that manages those devices that many higher ed community users use today, but this is the same platform that users would activate, deactivate their private subscribers, also get visibility into device management or core and slice management if necessary. Next slide. Based off of feedback we got from the university community and some of our proof of concepts, they said activating and deactivating private SIMs is great, but when we think about our DAS architecture today, we really have no visibility into the performance. We know if it's not working because our subscribers will tell us that their phones are no longer working. So through once again, feedback from the University of Community, we've built significant dashboards that show static availability of radios, performance of radios. And if you look at the bottom of the chart, you'll also see where radios are dispersed across the campus environment. These dashboards continue to evolve. So we look forward to continuing to partner with the university community to add even more capabilities into this. Next slide, please, Brian. This, once again, is just some of the other KPIs that we're tracking based off of the radio access network to show handoff, hand-ins from the MOPN gateway, performance of those handoff and hand-ins. And once again, this is important not only to the university community, but as we provide our reporting back to the carriers to make sure we're meeting their key performance indicators. Next slide. At this point, I want to turn it over to Jonathan from Cal Poly. I've asked Jonathan today really to focus on outdoor use cases, but John's got a lot going on with his Cal Poly Innovation Center. He's a leader in this space. If you haven't had the opportunity to talk to John after this, please reach out. The great work they're doing there at Cal Poly is unbelievable, and I'm proud to have the opportunity to partner with John and his team.
Thanks so much, Jamaal. Thank you, Brian. You guys hear me okay? See me okay? Okay. Yeah, I'm excited to share our story at Cal Poly and the work we've done with Internet 2 and Kajeet over the last couple of years. A little snapshot about Cal Poly. We have 22,000 students. We're the largest landholding university within the CSU system at 10,000 acres. We got 22 schools in the CSU system, 500,000 students, the largest university system in the US. And when I talk about that landholding number, I was running some stats even this morning and doing some propagation model. We're in a world where we're not measuring coverage by square feet anymore. We're looking at acres and square miles. 6,000 of our acres are actually ranch land. 3,200 of that is up off the coast near Santa Cruz, far, far away from the campus core. And these are areas where the carriers traditionally did not provide coverage. And so from a safety perspective and not having 911 services, that was always a pain point for many of these rural areas. We're a learn by doing institution. Everything we do is applied as a polytechnic. So we're not sitting here writing papers and doing research. I was brought in by the CIO a few years ago who had a vision of rethinking connectivity on the campus around how could we improve the student experience, campus operations, facilities, as well as the research and development. My background is actually from the energy sector, where I came from Chevron doing deployments for remote oil and gas fields. So it was a great opportunity to bring that experience, that industry experience, tie it with our partners at AWS, T-Mobile, Federated Wireless, Kajeet now, and Internet 2, and be that round table where we could all work to solve some of these shared problems around campus connectivity. And through that entire time, we've had a lot of students working with us. And I think there's another slide after this one, which I like as a backdrop to speak to. It's just a snapshot. I feel kind of like a proud pop after about 3 years of building this innovation lab, growing it from our first 5G standalone network about 3 years ago in partnership with AWS and Federated Wireless, learning we were probably a little bit ahead of our time, walking that back, learning that we needed LTE and 4G because that's where the support was. That's where industry was moving. This is not something that's just an oil and gas thing. This is something we want to, or an agriculture thing. This is something we want our students to plug into. They need this skill. We need network engineers of the future. So they were in lockstep with us. I had construction management students, computer engineers, CS students, as well as our partners to connect our very disparate land holdings and environments. Through this journey, we worked with Federated T-Mobile to bring the first neutral host solution about 2.5 years ago. Poly Canyon is a hiking area just outside of our campus core. There had been issues with injuries and assaults with no 911 coverage. So we took our learnings from our 5G network and said, let's go solve this pain point. Let's find the pain on campus and see how we could apply this new connectivity toolbox, particularly outdoor, where we can see range of miles of coverage using a CBRS E node B or G node B. And so that's what we did. You can see a gentleman hanging one of our radios in Poly Canyon. Some collaborations we did with ECSB on the top there, being an autonomous pole that has a battery in the footing that we can deploy on any ranch anywhere using a satellite backhaul, but then still have broad support for devices, iPhones, etc., tablets, drones in those rural areas. Our students, the top right corner, that's them in our Frost, our new Frost Research Center, Research and Innovation Center. It's one of the crown jewels in the CSU system. That building was just completed 2 years ago, a few $100 million. but it's a bunker in the bottom, no coverage. So we brought our 4G network into there, as well as the neutral host capability to fill those holes in our network. We did our Cal Poly Pier. There's an image there on the left side. You can see all the folks out there. That's a shot that we did from the aquarium all the way a mile into the ocean to provide 5G connectivity and backhaul for a resource that traditionally had 1 megabit over copper for 20 years. And we went in there and solved it over a summer. So hopefully you're taking away, there's a lot you can do this with, a lot you can do with this technology. I saw a question pop in. The reason I gravitated towards Kajeet and what Internet 2 was doing was the community working together as higher education institutions to solve our shared problems around connectivity. Kajeet's been incredibly flexible, so we can bring our own core, our own set of radios, the neutral host, the SIMs, the full stack, and still having some flexibility in terms of how we need to deploy. Because one of the things that's unique about universities, instead of carpeted spaces and offices, is we're very heterogeneous in our applications. There's anything and everything we might need to provide connectivity to. So there's no silver bullet. It's not satellite just or Wi-Fi or it's just cellular. We have to bring the whole wireless family together, and we need that flexibility. And Kajeet has offered that. So I'm really looking forward with continuing to work with Internet 2 as the service goes live. I think there's a lot of partnership opportunities as we look to take this service and now expand it. Given that we can use things like the Internet 2 fiber backbone, we have these great assets at Internet 2 like EduRoam and InCommon and Identity. So once you start to look at, once the service is live and we can look into the future as how we as universities can start to roam across our networks, both for Wi-Fi as well as these private cellular networks. We've been laying that foundation, and I'm really excited to see how us as a community with these partners can move forward. So I think I'll leave it there, Brian, if you want to hand it off to Nash.
Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and tee up Nash here from Texas A&M. He's going to tell us a little bit about their experience with Kajeet.
Yes, thank you very much, Brian, and thank you, Jamaal. Okay, so let's go to the next chart. There's a few points I want to make here, and then I'll show you a little bit of how our private network coverage laid out across our campus. So back in 2024, we put together an experimental network using Kajeet to help integrate some radio access network equipment we purchased from Samsung with their core. So we actually had a 4G operating band 41 network. Now, let me make sure it's clear. You don't have to use band 41 to do this. We could have done the very same thing using CBRS. We happen to have a unique situation where we have a lot of band 41 spectrum, so we wanted to put that into use to help gain a greater understanding of high bandwidth applications and such. So the two use cases that we served in this experiment was operational support and research. So under the heading of operational support, what we did was serve our transportation department in organizing and taking payments for parking. So they would have remote point of sale terminals that would connect over this band 41 data network to the internet to conduct transactions and verify payments, etc. As well, we also did a pretty elaborate robotic demonstration using the band 41 private cellular network as the backhaul mechanism between cloud and local compute resources and actual robots operating in one of our parking lots. So let me put a plug in for what I think is kind of the bottom line behind the advantage to using this service offering that Internet 2 has put together with Kajeet's help. And to put it simply, the idea is this set of services and products will lower the burden on institutions to put new service into operation, as opposed to just starting from your own dead stop, trying to negotiate statements of work and pricing and all that kind of stuff. So The idea is most of your institutional contracting organizations and legal support can use most or all of what is already put into place and save you a lot of time and effort in putting these services into operation. So that's the idea behind this. And I think that several of those points will be elaborated on in subsequent slides. So show the next slide, and I'll talk a bit about the coverage. So for those unfamiliar with the term RSRP, what that means is the downlink power that a given point in space sees. This is kind of an eye chart. We have a huge campus, and it's pretty dense. So this is at a very high level because I was trying to encapsulate most of the footprint of this. So red is good and purple is bad or low coverage, and green and yellow are kind of in between. So when you get out to the edge of what you see is green here, that's pretty much the edge of usable coverage for most handheld devices. And this is sort of the 4G equivalent of RSSI, raw power. So this is kind of where mobile devices ought to be able to operate. Now, predicting RF is like herding cats. So you can't ever be completely confident that what the RF prediction shows you is going to work for sure, but it's a pretty good indicator. And we found actually that we had better performance in some places where we thought we were about to drop off the edge of the internet, the edge of coverage than this prediction showed. So we were pleasantly surprised. By the way, this is a very powerful transmitter. This is a 320 watt massive MIMO antenna from a single location on the west side of our campus that produced quite a bit of coverage. So this was a bit of a unique scenario as far as radio access network equipment goes. So um, I believe that's all the points I wanted to make. So onward to Keith. Thank you.
Before you transition, Nash,
Yes,
maybe
sir.
one or two highlights on some of the use cases you were solving in the experimental network. Maybe talk about, what happens with those good Aggies that came back last weekend and the excitement that the fans have in the parking lot.
Well, yes. So the kind of use cases that we put into service with this are uh, parking related mostly, although, well, I'm sorry, in research and development. That is, there's so many different things you can do with this. It's almost impossible to encapsulate them all in any one conversation. But what we primarily focused on was robotic kind of uses. So uh, devices that need autonomous control. For example, autonomous vehicles. That was one of the demonstrations we did in late 2024, early 2025. I'm sorry. So, but the possibilities are almost limitless. So it's essentially like you have a fiber optic cable that you can connect anywhere and follows the device around wherever you want it. So it's a quite um, useful tool for research and development.
All right.
Thank you, Nash.
You bet.
Thank you, Nash.
Go
Go ahead,
ahead.
Jamal.
I was going to say, Keith, before you go, I can't omit to recognize Jim Jokel, who is no longer with the university, for trusting us to help get this proof of concept off the ground. And now Keith taking over since Jim's retired and enjoying not dealing with some of the stuff we all deal with every day. But I couldn't go without thanking Jim for his leadership, his stewardship, and support of the overall program. And I'll speak for the Internet 2 community, a voice in the mobile, in the Future Wireless Working Group.
Thank you, Jamal. I really appreciate that. And UVA owes a debt to Jim. He was a force to be reckoned with at UVA and elsewhere. Um, yeah, so I want to say thanks, Jamal and Brian. My name is Keith Moores. I'm from the University of Virginia. I have come into this project under Jim's wing in the last year and have come from our operations side where we were dealing with our existing solutions for in-building cellular DAS. And Jim had started us down this path saying, hey, what is the next direction we want to take? What are the options that we want to look at for moving forward? We'd started, kind of on the cutting edge of in-building DAS stuff in the mid 2000s and built out a rather large on-prem DAS system, having to deal with all the complexities of carrier contracts and operator contracts and various, different challenges in maintaining all that and the dance that it takes to get investments from the carriers and to build the infrastructure and to maintain carrier neutrality. And the challenges that we run into with locating head-end space and dealing with the upgrades that would occur as carriers need to swap in and out technology, and we need more power or different things in different areas. Those are the kind of things that we were dealing with day in, day out when Jim started talking, saying, hey, what should we look at this CBRS solution? What could be done with Mach-In? And is there a different way? And I think, starting down that path to where we are now, it's been, quite the journey and quite the testament to, the folks involved in this moving forward and trying to address the challenges that come up, which were a lot. We've had a lot of challenges. And Jamaal, I noted with pride when you mentioned that we had Verizon brought on board at UVA in the last several months, and I'm right there with you. Some of us really doubted if that could even be possible. As recently as a few months before that. So, I want to say that in general, working with Kajeet on this has been excellent. They have helped us. Realize this vision that many had, and along with Jim's years ago, saying, "Hey, can we get there?" I wanted to say that when we work with the carriers through Kajeet, it is interesting to see how that lessens what we're dealing with on our traditional DAS systems. It's working through Kajeet actually helps us with that, and we can only hope that over time, as more customers come on board, that would improve. Rather than having every single university have to sort of leverage that and work it individually. I think that's something that we're looking forward to saying, hey, can having Kajeet help us with that and maintain those relationships with the carriers and increase the relationships with the carriers and push us over that line is something that we are looking forward to. You want to go to the next slide here? The locations that we piloted in primarily was one of our reading studying libraries and an outdoor location. And we were primarily looking at the reading studying library as a place to really say, what would this look like in comparison to what we could have done with a DAS solution? And say, hey, how does this work? How does this operate? And as we brought on AT&T and then T-Mobile and Verizon, and we worked with Kajeet to try to see how the performance worked, where it didn't work, where we need to work on handoff. Again, strong relationship with Kajeet to try to work through those hurdles, and I think being in the pilot here, or hopefully as new folks are onboarded, those experiences should probably be even smoother. We did there was a lot of learning that occurred during that period, and I think that the experience right now, what we're hearing from our customers is very good. And that makes me want to touch back in on something else that was mentioned earlier, which is visibility. In our traditional DAS systems, someone else mentioned it's like, is it working? Is it not? Well, we hear what our customers say. We've got to call our integrator and get someone out there to test. We have no way of just checking. Whereas with our CBR solution, the dashboard systems, which Jamaal mentioned earlier, and they're constantly improving and taking our feedback and saying, hey, what can we add? Is organizing it this way helpful? They've been really good to work with on that, and that does give us something that we absolutely didn't have before with the DAS. Another thing that we hear from our folks is we had specialized installers coming in for our DAS systems versus working mainly with our in-house folks that hang wireless APs. Working on designs coming from Kajeet, but actually the labor of installing one of these eNode B radios compared to installing an access point is very similar. And from that perspective, you look at it and saying, hey, it's a different operational change where we largely considered our DAS installation as something that we're contracting out and a completely different install method, a different group of people that support it, a different demand on our space and power and fiber infrastructure to distribute the DAS system around our grounds to our various buildings. Whereas, the CBRS install process on-prem, in that building is very much like an access point. From an outdoor perspective, that was more of a trial of saying, hey, what could we do? We're primarily focused on saying, how do we get, a future working model for in-building coverage, but outdoor intrigues us. And so, we're looking at, potentially, areas of the campus that, we might be able to look at future private 4G, 5G solutions for things like ticket resale or extending even gateways to access points to extend Wi-Fi somewhere as a backhaul. So there are other areas that we're thinking about, and we wanted to understand how the radios could perform outside. And quite frankly, we're pretty amazed at the distances that we could go and still connect into these radios. We would see it on paper and say, yeah, it surely can't work that well. And actually, we were quite surprised with that. Um, let's see if there's anything else here on this comment. Yeah, the niche applications that I mentioned, those are the ones that for us, it's more, you can look at it at different approaches. It seems like some folks are focusing mainly on saying, hey, the private network part is how we're going to start, and the neutral host solution is something that is more of an adder, and where we're sort of flipping it the other way, saying, if we build it more of a neutral host thing, then when we find the use cases, we have that capability. And so there's lots of different ways to look at this from that perspective. Okay, can we go to the next slide? So, I think that, some of the other elements that we wanted to make sure that we met was understanding how, 911 services would work. And that was something that was really important to us. We have a public safety. It's brought up all the time about public safety saying, hey, can we do more with cellular coverage? There are areas where we don't have good coverage and people are in there and they want to make phone calls. And the answers where we haven't been able to get a DAS solution in, have been Wi-Fi calling, which is not the best solution for some use cases. And the 911 and all of our testing 911 services, things are working great. And so that's something that we were pleased to see. And again, I think I already touched on some of what we're calling niche applications, but for others, they certainly could be, if you can build business cases around them, areas to get funding for this. And so that is something where we've started conversations with our security folks and saying, hey, are there any applications around cameras or other issues where we might be able to do something with that? And we're just starting to go down that path, really. But having that capability is something that we're really looking forward to saying that's fundamentally something we could do, and we see a path to getting there. And introducing this new approach that has a completely different funding model, completely different installation model, is something that we're excited about. There still are a lot of things that we're looking forward to in the future. We're hoping, the radio market gets more competitive for we mentioned the airspan radios they're supported today. We're hoping that we get some more competition in that area for carrier-approved radios. But I feel like we've gotten to the point where we've said, hey, this works and it is a viable option. And it has a different cost model and it has some different benefits from DAS. And it's something that we like having this as an option that we can use in our locations, and that works. And we've proved it out. And it's literally in the past 2 months here, Jamaal, we've been saying, hey, we got there, and then so that's a good feeling. And so I guess I'll leave it at that and see if we have any questions.
Keith, thank you again. We actually could put the flag in the ground that we have a full 3-carrier solution up and running and operational. So thank you for your leadership and support.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
If the attendees are so inclined to use your Zoom reactions panel or Zoom chat to just join me in thanking Jonathan and Nash and Keith for sharing about their institution's private wireless and neutral host implementations, please feel free to go ahead and do so. And we're going to move away from the more interesting part of the presentation. And there's a thumbs up and a clap. Thanks, folks. Appreciate that. And again, appreciate gentlemen's willingness to share their experiences. That's really good, I think, for folks to hear and why people are attending the webinar today. Before we hop into Q&A, I just want to give you just a quick summary of the service evaluation and talk about some of the outcomes and kind of the next steps if you're interested, and then we can kind of go to Q&A. I've noticed that the panelists have done a pretty good job answering the Q&A, but always we'll have an open opportunity here as we get to the end of the content. So on the service evaluation, those are the participating institutions, folks that were on the call, as well as colleagues from University of Washington and University of Michigan, as well as ESNet participated in that. UVA, again, being the sponsoring institution with Jim's leadership and Keith's continued leadership in that space. So very happy to have that level of participation by the community. The service evaluation took 13 months, and we spent a significant time primarily in the customer agreement addendum, partially because this is a pretty new technology for universities. And the goal of any Net Plus contract is to make it easy for subscribers to consume and to accelerate the procurement process, but not at the expense of shortcutting or circumventing any of the things that we know higher ed institutions want to minimize in terms of their exposure. As far as evaluation outcomes, we did the technical assessment. I believe we had about 60, maybe 70 use cases that were generated amongst participating institutions. Kajeet was able to address a large portion of those, and those that they weren't able to address were very open to adding those into their roadmap moving forward. So very, again, Kajeet demonstrating, not only their maturity and wanting to be able to keep their product flexible, but also to meet higher ed with, some of the crazy things that higher ed asks for. And I'm saying that having been a higher ed person, there's just things that maybe vendors don't know that are pain points for us. And Kajeet demonstrated really good flexibility and agility in technical assessment. Part of that, as well as far as evaluation outcomes in the area of compliance, as far as Section 508 compliance for accessibility, the EDUCAUSE HECVAT, and they're able to provide us as well. There's SOC 1 and SOC 2 supporting documentation. So very happy in that space. During the trials and some of the actual field testing that was done by the participating institutions, there were a couple of things that came up specific to macro to MOC and handoffs, and Kajeet was very responsive to that, and we're able to resolve those things before the end of the evaluation. So again, just singing the praises of Kajeet's. We feel like we picked the right provider because of their willingness to really work with us, and then. Just overall, just not only from folks in the trial, but other folks that have worked with Kajeet have talked about just their positivity in all phases of the evaluation and just their overall diligence in trying to make sure they meet the community needs. Some of the areas that were interesting for us as far as the addendum goes, when I talked about kind of the business side, was just around indemnification and working through E911 liability. But those are the things that we'll talk about here in the next slide, but we're able to kind of clear those hurdles. As far as the contract goes, we are on a 5-year agreement with Kajeet with unlimited 1-year renewals. The solution pricing, so all the elements that Jamaal talked about as far as the MOCN, the EPC, the radios are at 10% below list price with an increase capped at 5%. I talked a little bit about the compliance. From a liability perspective, two things that are kind of unique about the addendum are around the liability caps for data breach remediation and especially 911 remediation. So those are definitely not in the standard Kajeet customer agreement. The business model is a volume-based pricing structure. So depending on the size of the implementation, that pricing table will change to reflect the size of that. Kajeet was also creative in how they packaged the Sentinel product that they talked about, as well as the core, if you were to do private cellular and neutral host as an entire platform. And I think Keith and Nash both, I think actually Keith talked about just the flexibility with Kajeet to either work with your certified installers to do some of the installation and professional services, as well as certifying some of the campus solutions. So with that, there's also some specific eligibility requirements I'll draw your attention to at the bottom. And there's also some language in there that allows for some consideration by Internet 2 and Kajeet for those that don't meet the kind of the upper portion of the eligibility for NFP education institutions or their Internet 2 members or affiliates. All right. If you're interested in if you're interested in the program, we do have artifacts that are available. We have a contract summary and cover sheet, as well as the addendum available. And I encourage you to visit the Kajeet service page. We do have RFP summary scoring that would at least give you an idea that would be redacted as far as who the actual participants were, but you can kind of see where Khajiit finished in that scoring. If that's something that you're interested in, please reach out to me. And then Khajiit did do a Sentinel webinar for the Future Wireless Working Group a couple months ago. I'm happy to share that with you as well. I think one of the things that we have perhaps on the Future Wireless Working Group agenda for the start of 2026, sometime in the first quarter, is we'd like to kind of take a deep dive on the core offering. That's something that folks from the working group had expressed some interest in. So those are some future things that would be available to you as moving forward. Again, if you're interested in the program, visit the service page, or you can send an email to netplus@internet2.edu, and that request will come to me, and we can talk, and then we can engage Khajiit as needed. So I'm going to open it up now for Q&A. I see that there were at least 12 answers that were mowed down during question and answer. So are there any questions that folks have that were not answered? You can either raise your hand and we can allow you to talk, or you can put your answers into Q&A. The wellness were some of the examples that are cited. So again, is location information about end devices available for non-E911 purposes, specifically asset tracking, safety, student safety, and wellness? Anybody want to take that one?
So I'll go ahead, Jonathan. I saw you because you answered the one in the chat. I'll let you kick it off.
You go first, I can follow up.
Yeah, I was going to say E911 is really based off of the RAN, but as long as any of those devices have a SIM card, that's how their location is tracked through the PSAP. So that's how I would answer that question. John, anything you want to add?
Yeah, because sometimes this question comes from a privacy perspective too. And one of the things, finding that balance between safety and privacy that I'm keenly interested in is what's happening in network APIs across telecom. And so we're seeing things like network APIs from Chimera and GSMA Open Gateway. And there's one I really love, which is called population density. So if you're having a fire or you're trying to route something, you can at least get coarse enough data to know where are the people, where are the students. For universities, one of the key things that on our mind is, active shooters or emergencies like this. How do you get to the people on your campus, timely targeted within a geofence, getting these capabilities onto our campus? It's pretty cutting edge, working with FEMA and the like, to really build this capability where we're not just doing 911. Can we get that call out? Check. We've done that. We can do more. But now we're starting to look at how can we push out earthquake, fire, active shooter, hyper targeted connections, just like you get a shake alert on your phone in California. That you don't need an app install, you're going to get that. So those are the types of capabilities we're starting to unlock, but that's kind of the next step.
From a neutral host solution today, I think a part of it might be about that. You don't get information specifically about, through the dashboards that we have today and all that. That's not information that's exposed about, oh, this was so-and-so's phone or asset for privacy reasons. That stays with the carrier. Just that part is not there.
All right. Any closing comments before I move to close from any of the panelists?
Ryan, we've got one more question in the queue.
Oh, here we go. Just need to let it sit for a moment. All right, I will read it aloud. Have all these higher ed customers/groups also considered other approaches for neutral host? Example given, DAS, DRAN, etc. Is MOCN the choice because MNOs are not funding those venues?
So I would say from UVA's perspective, I'm not sure. Like I think I mentioned before, I think MOCN is a great option to have. I think that there probably are competing advantages for different things. Like Jamaal, you and I have discussed, we have an extensive DAS installation at our stadium. We don't think that MOCN is a good CPRS is a good solution for that. But I think that it's probably going to depend on your use case and what you have. So different folks coming into different scenarios with different relationships with carriers. We may, for UVA, we look at this as another arrow in the quiver to have as a solution. And in some places, it's going to be a good fit for us, and in other places, it may not be as good a fit as one of the other solutions. So And if I had to think about it over time, my hope is it becomes a better fit in more locations. That we're just at the beginning of it, and that that's what I'm hoping happens over time.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to Keith's comment. This is not a one size fit all. And really, the way we were able to get Verizon on University of Virginia was a collaborative approach, looking at, the disparate, you know, network connectivity across UVA to see what locations were the right fit. So once again, across the university community, if they engage with Khajiit, our goal is to make the right recommendation. And if it's something that we can't support directly through our programs, we would love to work with you to collaborate with the carriers to bring the right solution. And that's why I said in one of our opening slides, we're also looking at how do we leverage potential existing DAS deployments to add I'll call it a baseband unit to be able to broadcast CBRS for still your private elements. That way we could also leverage existing investments that have been made in technology. So once again, this is not a one size fit all. We look at all of the technologies that are available, and based off of what use case we're trying to solve or size of venue for in-building coverage, we would make the right recommendation.
I feel like half of the members of the Future Wireless Working Group have DASs. Cal Poly never invested. We look at the economics and it never made sense. So we actually didn't have a DAS infrastructure. And I think there's a lot of schools like us. And I don't think we spoke enough about time and complexity. DASs are capital intensive, schedule intensive, takes a year sometimes or more. So when we did our Frost deployment, again, we were one of the very early adopters of neutral host 2.5 years ago, shortly after Meta did it. We went from concept to deploying in Frost in like a quarter. You can't achieve that kind of speed with a classic DAS infrastructure. And there's new patterns with MORAN and things coming along, which are all welcome, and glad that this neutral host architecture is very dynamic right now, and we need more of it because there's some hard rules of physics that we're not going to get any more space in our buildings to hang more antennas. So we have to learn to share. But MOCN proved to be highly cost effective and low complexity and very quick to deploy. So it was a good fit for us. But we also don't have a good football team, so we don't have a huge stadium like Keith and Nash. So
All right, I think we've got two more here. Any thoughts about passive off-air DAS for in-building versus active or CBRS? Our campus, UC Berkeley, has a very robust macro infrastructure for all carriers. Any thoughts about passive off-air DAS for in-building versus active or CBRS?
I'll take a stab at that, Bruce. I think that's probably something we want to have a sidebar conversation, really understand what you're trying to accomplish, size of the building, and then we could look at, making recommendations. The one thing I say about when you do an off-air DAS, you're looking at potentially interfering in the mobile network operator space. And if that off-air DAS is degrading their network, they can take control and actually to shut it down. So those are things we want to look at as we evaluate, but we would love to have that conversation to see, what might be the best solution to solve your challenge. And I'll just say, I spent as Nash and I spent almost 20 years each at Verizon. I come from the wireless DAS space, and really my move into this space here was, to John's point, the speed, the market, the flexibility, and to serve the market that, in many cases, a DAS might not be the right solution because of cost and time to market.
We have there's one more question. I see that Nash is typing, but maybe other folks will chime in, so I'll just read it out loud. If you had excellent Wi-Fi service, coverage and capacity, connectivity everywhere, why would you what advantage would you have in using CBRS or private wireless?
Since Nash was typing, I'll let him go first.
One that comes to mind for me is emergency notification and 911 calling. In a really bad scenario, that's pretty essential. So Wi-Fi calling has some limitations and some complexities that extending a commercial cellular network in either MOCN or a conventional DAS does not have.
And I'll just add, as I mentioned in the highlight, we have a very strategic partnership with Cisco for our mobile packet core. Cisco is the leader in Wi-Fi. This is not something that will ever replace Wi-Fi. So if you've built out a robust Wi-Fi network, that's great. Congratulations. I think what we see this solution solving complementary to Wi-Fi are applications that need mobility. As you know, Wi-Fi is static. You're connected to one AP at a time. With this, through the technology, anything that needs to be mobile and stay connected, this technology allows that. So you can continue to gather the data based off of mobility.
I'll jump in. Beyond mobility, coming from an industrial world, the OT space is really important too. So when we're talking about the campus operations, we have student experience, campus operations and research. Campus operations, your OT use cases, your building management. And one of the key return on investment applications is avoiding having to do trenching, cable replacement. There's Jason Whalen at John Deere has a great tagline. It's cleaner than copper and it's cheaper than Wi-Fi. If you can avoid having to run Ethernet or cable, and that fixed wireless is one of the deployments like we did at our peer that has a great ROI. The students aren't connecting to this with their mobile phones, sure, but you're not running cable or trenching under a road. And people, it's not as visible to see those use cases in the OT world, but those have the highest ROI from where we've been sitting.
All right, well, we're at the top of the hour. I want to take the opportunity to make sure you guys are aware that TechX is upcoming in December. There'll be a private wireless and neutral host tutorial on the first half of the first day, as well as the Mobility Day panel. There'll be a couple folks from this call that will be there to hopefully have you can engage with in some hallway conversations. On behalf of Internet 2, and the community of panelists and the community just wanted to thank the panelists here today and Kajeet for joining us, and we're very happy to have them join the Net Plus portfolio. If there's any interest or any inquiries that you want to have about the program, please reach out to me. I am the program manager for the Net Plus Kajeet program, or you can just email netplus@internet2.edu, and we will